Tonight, bridge closed. Why has the backup crossing across the Gulf been blocked off indefinitely? And Port Germein locals pushing for a water park to revive tourism in their ailing town.
This is Southern Cross News with Tim Hatfield.
Good evening. Port Augusta's historic Great Western Bridge has been closed indefinitely amid concerns the 90-year-old structure could collapse. And with no promises of it being fixed, the public has mounting fears over what would happen should the town's main bridge be thrown out of action as well. Our reporter Lauren Rose is at the old bridge. Lauren, plenty of locals quite angry at this move.
Absolutely, Tim. The wooden bridge was built in 1927 and until today has been used daily by pedestrians and cyclists wanting to get from one side of Port Augusta to the other. But more importantly, it was a bypass for emergency service vehicles should they be unable to use the main traffic bridge here, and that's what's concerning residents the most.
Where do they go then? It cuts us off everywhere, doesn't it?
Because if they've got to go around Yorkie's Crossing, well, that's a rough road and takes her a good 3/4 of an hour to get around.
Users of the Great Western Bridge will now have to make the trek over the Gulf on the main bridge. People on foot, bikes and gophers will have to share this single lane alongside heavy traffic, including road trains.
Particularly discourages probably people with small children because there's no railing to stop them running off into the road unexpectedly. I've got grandchildren and I wouldn't walk them across here.
It's a fair inconvenience actually. I trek over there quite a few times a week.
The bridge was deemed structurally unsound this week after a safety inspection found the timber abutments at either end were at risk of collapsing. But Port Augusta's mayor sees opportunity.
We could actually get what we've been looking for at least 10 years, which is a redevelopment of the Great Western Bridge.
But that's easier said than done. It's a $7.5 million fix, only possible if the federal and state governments agree to split the bill. Mayor Johnson said he's already had positive talks with State Transport Minister Stephen Mulligan.
And he is going to work towards, no promises yet, but certainly work towards honouring the other 50% should the federal government come forward with 50%.
Now there's no denying the mood of disappointment here, with many people making comparisons to the old jetty that's been left idle for years. But the mayor is confident with secured funding, the tender process for the redevelopment of the Great Western Bridge can begin as early as this year. Tim?
OK, thank you, Lauren. Lauren Rose reporting from Port Augusta there. In a boost for Whyala's mining operations supplier BGC has renewed its contract to operate Ariam's southern Middleback mines. The 5-year extension is being seen as a sign the industry believes the collapsed company does have a long-term future. John Hunt has the details.
Big businesses generally don't shell out $720 million on a 5-year contract unless they're sure it'll work out. So BGC's new deal with Ariam is good news for Whyala. The company will continue to provide mining services in the Middleback Ranges, employing thousands of local people. BGC was founded in Western Australia in 1960 and is one of the largest privately owned companies in Australia. BGC has been servicing the mines for over a decade now, and its contract was due to expire later this year. It'll now continue in the southern Middleback mines until 2022, after the contract was signed earlier this week. It'll also provide services to Ariam's historic mine at Iron Knob, 50 kilometres east of Whyala. The contractor will provide a number of services, including drilling, blasting, loading and filling trains. Both companies have spoken positively about the new contract, saying the two have worked strongly together to keep costs down in a tough commodity market. The new deal is all the more interesting as Ariam has yet to be sold, after being put in administration nearly 12 months ago. But administrators Corda Mentha have given their blessing, with Mark Mentha praising their ability to find solutions during difficult times. The length of the deal will be welcomed by most people in Whyala, as it shows contractors are confident operations will continue. Both BGC and Ariam declined to comment on camera today. But there's still one big contract yet to be signed, and that's the one that hands Ariam over to new owners. That announcement, which the whole of Whyala is waiting for, is expected in the next couple of weeks.
John Hunt reporting there. A desalination plant could be the latest big project to be built in Port Pirie. Engineers travelled from Melbourne last night to give a presentation about the module to council.
A first-of-its-kind desalination plant could be built right in our backyard.
This is all the wastewater that goes out of your house, whether it's through your effluent system, your toilets, whether it's wastewater through your showers.
Engineering firm Sustec gave an overview to council last night on their plan to install the plant in Port Pirie.
They're looking to set up a plant, set up an energy source for that plant, and then work towards putting it back into our pipe system for our parks and recreation areas.
The idea was well received, and now further discussions will be held with the council.
We will do this in a special meeting within the next couple of weeks. Then, if it's a positive decision, that'll go back to Sustec, and they're saying that the plant could be up and running by Christmas.
The plant could save council thousands of dollars. They pay around $1 million a year for water, and that could be reduced by a third. But the plant is yet to be approved by environmental protection authorities.
Through the osmosis process, yes, it provides potable water, but there will be a brine that will be associated with it after the process is done. That'll need to be pumped back out into the Gulf.
There will be no cost to council to build the plant, but they will partially pay for the water.
We'll go into a contract arrangement with them and they'll charge us a per kilolitre rate on that water.
Keziah Sullivan, Southern Cross News.
Community sporting clubs in Port Lincoln have been urged to take part in a government program aimed at reducing the impact of ice across the Eyre Peninsula. The Good Sports program is being expanded under the National Ice Action Strategy to educate clubs on how to tackle the ice epidemic.
Ice is one of the biggest issues facing rural Australia, but now there's a government plan to help those suffering most.
We know that 1 in 6 people across Australia are affected by issues around illegal drugs, and we know that our sports clubs are reflective of the broader community. But part of the problem is that sports clubs up until now haven't really felt able to deal with the issue. So the program really focuses on providing that support into their local communities.
The Good Sports program is an initiative by the Alcohol and Drug Foundation to combat the impact ice has in regional towns. The program, part of a bigger national ice strategy, focuses on developing a positive sport culture on all levels.
In South Australia, we have a really fantastic relationship with the SANFL around this issue. We work closely with them to help us to work out where we can take the program, particularly into regional South Australia.
The platform aims to develop a relationship with clubs to offer education and provide support, a request that some Port Lincoln teams are already adopting.
We think it's an important initiative, for regional towns, especially here. We don't have an issue with it at our club directly, but we're fully behind all of these programs. I think it's important for young kids in regional towns.
Developing a healthy culture, crucial to its success.
We've made an environment where people are comfortable to talk about any of those issues. So we would like to think if there was an issue with an individual that we'd get the alarm bell straight away.
For more information, head to our Facebook page. Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
Well, stay with us. Still to come in tonight's local news. Port Germein locals push for a water park to revive local tourism. The details ahead. Welcome back. Port Germein locals are fighting hard for a water park which they believe will save their town. Tourist numbers are dwindling, and for the township to survive, a solution needs to be implemented soon.
The future of the small coastal town of Port Germein is under threat. Business is down, there are minimal supplies, and tourist levels are at an all-time low due to the iconic jetty being out of action.
I've been here now nearly 10 years and seen the town gradually go into a slide backwards.
And when they have bookings for the caravan park, people say, well, can we get food?
A water park is locals' answer to bringing more families to the town. The group will borrow the money from the local government association, but they need the approval from their council.
We are funding this through the Progress Association, and we will be charging a small entry fee.
What we can see here is something that the town drastically needs to encourage other businesses back into town.
Last night, a community meeting was held to once again discuss the plan, but some members were concerned with the lack of presence from the council.
My main concern is that council aren't really listening to us. I've been 7 months in the making of trying to bring this to fruition, and every time it goes to a council meeting, they throw something else at us.
Mount Remarkable Council told Southern Cross News that councillors have sent the idea to public consultation and are waiting for more information. And if approved, a development application will be put forward.
We've done the business plan, we've done everything. All we want is a proactive council.
In Port Germein, Keziah Sullivan, Southern Cross News.
Broken Hill City Council is set to save over $400,000 a year after a review of its insurance portfolio. The money saved will go towards improving areas of council's business which pose the greatest insurance risk.
Over the coming years, council stands to save millions of dollars following an extensive review process.
Well, one of the jobs that we've started doing over the last few months is an overall service review of the organisation, looking at every aspect of the organisation and how we might be able to be more efficient, more effective, save some money, areas that we might need.
As part of a tender process, council met with a number of insurers. General insurances were costing council upwards of $700,000 a year. They were expecting to make some savings, but what they got was unexpected.
But we didn't expect anything in the magnitude of what we achieved, which was a $450,000 a year annual saving on our insurance bill. So we were very happy with the process and the outcome.
Council has already decided what the savings will go toward. $200,000 will go into an insurance reserve, which will be used to cover one-off events which may not be covered.
And then the other $200 we're going to use to focus on risks around the city that are the subject of insurance claims and look to try and fix those. So that might be tile pathing and footpaths and those sorts of things.
The remaining $50,000 will be allocated to staff training around risk prevention and identification.
It's been a great outcome all round and one that we're very pleased with.
Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
The RAA has taken a swipe at country fuel outlets, saying they're failing to pass on the savings of the Bowser. The comments come as the latest figures once again show a drop in regional fuel ratings.
Once again, regional cities and towns aren't getting a fair deal at the petrol pump. The latest RAA survey shows a decline in the competitiveness of prices in all cities. Analysts say a wholesale price reduction wasn't passed on last month, and that trend is continuing in March.
We're not seeing a reduction in wholesale prices flowing through to pump prices in much of country South Australia. So as much as February highlighted this issue, so far during March, that trend has continued.
Port Lincoln, Port Augusta and Broken Hill fared well, with independent outlets being credited for strengthening competition. Whyalla and Port Pirie, however, were given harsh marks for what they were offering. The RAA says Port Pirie is rock bottom for being slow with a price reduction and quick with an increase.
So the combination of the two ultimately meant that in the month of February, they weren't very competitive overall.
And with the wholesale continuing to fall, the RAA will be keeping an eye on price movements. Modelling shows we should be heading towards $1.20 in the near future. But Mr West says he's not holding his breath.
We would expect most country prices to be heading towards the low 20s, if not below for some locations, but we're just not seeing that.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Well, stay with us when we return after the break, almost 2 centuries on, reflecting on the pioneers who made Port Lincoln what it is today. The details ahead. Welcome back. A ceremony to commemorate the first landing in Port Lincoln has been held at the Axel Stenros Museum this week, 178 years since the arrival of the first European settlers. The Caledonian Society organised the event to recognise the history of those adventurous pioneers.
178 years ago saw the foundation of Port Lincoln as we know it. Members of the Caledonian Society and local residents turned out to reflect and recognise the Eyre Peninsula's settlement history.
The Caledonian Society has been doing this for 43 years, and I think that underlines the fact that we think it's important that present-day people know a bit about their roots and the roots of the settlement and the town and the city.
The first landing in March 1839 was recounted through stories by the mayor and members of the region. Their pioneering tales of hardship and triumph bringing out some emotion, many discovering their perils for the first time.
I've been learning about the early history of Port Lincoln and Longyear Peninsula and all of the amazing feats that have happened here.
Port Lincoln's Caledonian Society presented the ceremony, including a guard of honour and raising of the flag, a tradition they're keen to pass down to others.
It's important too to keep trying to involve the younger people. And, as I said, they're the future of the city, aren't they? And our country, ultimately.
Guests at the Axel Stenros Museum recounted the stories of the event and the contribution Matthew Flinders made some time before. The ceremony keeping alive the memories of those who walked before us and paved the way for Port Lincoln today.
Our lives today are very easy compared to those days, so I think someone, and for those people to make that effort, and in some ways just sacrifice, to set up in a far-out place like Port Lincoln in those early days, I think amazing.
Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
Footy action returns in Broken Hill this weekend with its pre-season competition being held on Saturday. The Lightning Cup will provide all 4 clubs a chance to dust off the cobwebs, test new game plans and give their players a much-needed hit-out. The new format will see the winners of the first 2 matches play off in the final, with the 2 losing sides playing a consolation match beforehand. Oh, time to cast our eyes out to the waters now to see what's biting. Here's this week's fishing tips.
Welcome to another week of Round the Gulf Fishing Tips from Port Pirie. It was a little bit strange over the weekend. We see the blue swimmer crab numbers drop off in Port Pirie. Now we're still seeing yellowfin whiting on Talawi Beach, so just wade out to your ankles and then start walking back in with the tide. You will get yourself a good bag. Still those mid-sized snappers around the creek, so burley up plenty. Don't worry about the striped perch that are out there to drive you nuts. Just burley up heaps, you'll get a good feed of mid-sized things.
G'day and welcome to this week's Fishing Tips from Port Augusta, Jaw of the North. Well, the snapper have moved in big numbers, all from pan size right up to knobbers. More so up around the powerhouse and a little bit further south. Lots of silver whiting in the middle banks and also along the shacks. Some King George whiting showing up in good numbers as well, but they're not real big, so just watch the sizes. Up in the harbour here, they were actually getting some silvers from the old bridge, but it looks like that's not going to happen anymore.
The tides have been a little bit slower, so not a great deal has come in this week, but the past weeks have seen some good King George whiting starting to improve throughout the town. Lots of small ones, you've got to pick through the small ones, but most of the boats are starting to pick up some good numbers of King George whiting. The best areas to target have been down towards Mount Young. Garfish have also been available in the same areas, and a few squid have started to show up in the same grounds as well. For the snapper front, there's been some good fish coming in from the rip. A lot of boats have been hitting the areas on the weekend. Some have been hitting and some have been missing, but put the time in, you should be able to get a good catch there if you're lucky. And along the foreshore, the silver whiting is still running. Once again, you've got to pick the better tides and early in the morning.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. We'll start over at Coffin Bay this week, and there's been a few whiting caught out through the farm beach grounds. There's also been a few gummy sharks caught through that area as well. In between Sarazaks and Whitby, there's been a few red snapper, a few pink snapper up to about 60 centimetres, and a few school sharks through that area as well. And out around Greenley, there have been patches of tuna, but they've been up and down. And down here in Lincoln, the whiting have been a little bit patchy, but the squid and crabs have been pretty good. There's also been some salmon up to about 1.5 kilos within the bay, so they're worthwhile keeping an eye out for them. That's all for this week. We'll see you again next week.
Well, stay with us. After the break, we'll have a check of the local weather for Friday. Welcome back. Turning to the weather now, a fine and sunny day this Thursday with 32 the top in Port Augusta and 29 in Whyalla. Port Lincoln 26, 32 in Port Pirie, Broken Hill 33 today. On the national satellite image, patchy cloud is heading our way, however with it we're set to see the temps increase. Out on the Gulf waters, the winds to 15 knots in southeasterly, seas below a metre in southwesterly. Sunrise is at 7:24. So a fine end to the week tomorrow, 35 the top in Port Augusta and 33 in Whyalla, Port Lincoln 20 29, Port Pirie 34, Broken Hill with 35. And then looking ahead to the weekend, it's warming up, 28 on Saturday and 30 on Sunday in Port Lincoln, Cleveland 30 then 34, Woodner 36 then 39. Whyalla with 32 for Saturday and 36 degrees expected Sunday, 36 then 39 in Port Augusta, Kadina 32 and then 35. Port Pirie with 35 on Saturday and 38 degrees expected Sunday, 33 and then 36 in Clare, Broken Hill 37 on Saturday and then 39 degrees forecast on Sunday. And that is the local news for this evening. Don't forget you can stay up to date with us on Facebook and on Twitter. You can also drop us an email. We'll see you back here tomorrow night from 6:30. I'm Tim Hadfield from the team here at Southern Cross News. Enjoy your evening. Good night.